By now, almost everyone watching this already believes the same thing. The market is down, prices are falling, and it probably just makes sense to wait. And honestly, I don't blame anyone for thinking that. I mean, if you compare it to what the market looked like in 2021 or 2022, compared to what it looks like today, it feels like something's broke. I mean, homes aren't selling instantly anymore. Price reductions are very common, and every headline makes it sound like the worst is still ahead. But here's the problem with that narrative. Most people are talking about Sarasota and Manatee like they're one single market, when in reality, they're multiple markets behaving very differently at the same time. So today, I want to slow this down and walk you through what's actually happening here at the end of 2025, where the fear makes sense, where it's exaggerated, and why waiting for the bottom may not work the way people expect it to. Let's start with why this feels so uncomfortable, because emotion is driving a lot of the decisions right now. From 2020 through early 2022, we went through one of the most extreme housing markets in modern history. Buyers waived inspections. They paid well over asking. And prices didn't just rise, they jumped. And that period rewired expectations. So when the market stopped behaving that way, it didn't feel like normal. It felt like something was wrong. But the truth is, that market wasn't sustainable. And what we're seeing now isn't a collapse. It's just a reset back towards what normal behavior really is. And resets are always kind of painful when you're coming off a peak. Another mistake people make is lumping everything together. So here at the end of 2025, we're really dealing with four distinct markets. You've got Sarasota County single-family homes, Sarasota condos and townhomes, villas, and also the Manatee County single-family homes, and of course, Manatee condos, townhomes, and villas. Each one has different inventory levels and buyer psychology and different pressure points. So once you separate them all, the story becomes much clearer. Let's start with the Sarasota County single-family homes. This is where a lot of people assume that the demand disappeared, but it didn't. What changed is price tolerance. Buyers didn't totally vanish, they just stopped overpaying. Homes that are priced realistically, especially in desirable neighborhoods, are still selling. Homes based on what someone wishes it was worth back in 2022, those obviously are sitting. And when they sit long enough, they reduce. And that's not a crash. That's simply the market enforcing discipline and accuracy, what they're worth now. Let me give you a real example of what this looks like. So earlier this year, I worked with a seller here in Sarasota who insisted on listing their home based on a sale from 2022 because it was the same floor plan, same neighborhood, everything was the same. So on paper, it made sense to them. But as I warned them, it wouldn't sell. And it didn't sell. The market didn't respond. The market will tell you every time. And we had strong online views due to the marketing, but almost no serious showings for the first few weeks. Why? Of course, because buyers weren't gone. They were just comparing it to everything. Once we adjusted the price to reflect today's market instead of yesterday's peak, activity picked up almost immediately. And that home didn't sell in a weekend, but it did sell cleanly to a qualified buyer and without panic. That's the difference between a crash and a reset. Now, Sarasota condos and townhomes tell a different story. And this is where much of the fear comes from, because this segment saw inventory rise faster than demand. And at the same time, buyers started paying much closer attention to things like HOA fees, insurance costs, and building condition. So prices corrected here faster. And days on market increased, of course, and sellers lost a lot of leverage. But here's the important part. Most, not all, but most of the majority of that correction already happened. So late in 2025 isn't about free fall, it's about sorting. Now, I recently worked with a buyer who was convinced that condos were a terrible idea because of everything that they were reading online. So instead of rushing, we slowed it down. We looked at 3 Sarasota condo buildings. One had rising fees and a little bit of deferred maintenance. Another had potential assessments looming down the road. And the third had pretty strong reserves, very realistic sellers, and a pretty solid HOA. And guess which one sold, of course? The well-run building sold quietly with concessions to a buyer who wasn't trying to time the bottom, it's just trying to buy smartly. And the others are still sitting. So this isn't just about condos versus houses. It's about quality versus the risk. Now, Manatee County looks a little different, and for good reason. Manatee absorbed a massive amount of new construction over the last few years. So builders added supply, and buyers slowed a little bit. And incentives replaced bidding wars, so prices softened. But not because demand totally collapsed. They softened because supply finally caught up. Instead of panic price cuts, builders just adjusted through rate buy-downs, closing cost credits, and of course, price improvements. Now, I had some buyers who assumed that prices were falling everywhere, so they had planned to just wait until 2026. But they did end up buying earlier this month. When we look closely at new construction options in Manatee County, something stood out. Builders weren't just lowering prices. Instead, they were combining price reductions while offering incentives that dramatically lowered their monthly payments. So when we ran the numbers, the payments made sense now, not later. And those buyers realized that waiting for a headline price drop didn't nearly help as much as negotiating today's terms. They bought with leverage, not fear, and they got a premium view that wouldn't have been available down the road. Manatee Condos and Townhomes saw a lot of pressure too, but many are newer and better structured. That's why buyers here often have leverage without the same long-term risks that you see in older condo inventory. This isn't catching a falling knife, it's a negotiation window for very patient buyers. Now here's a question that stops most people from acting. What if prices keep falling? Well, you can wait, but waiting has a cost, and that often gets ignored. Now, renting feels easier today, but historically renters spend money and walk away with nothing. Across multiple market cycles, including bubbles and rate spikes, homeowners consistently built wealth over time, and I've talked with lots of people who decided to wait and rent. A year later, many of them are still paying rent, watching homes that they liked sell, and realize that they actually didn't gain anything by waiting. They've got no equity, just time gone, and not living in a place that they truly enjoyed. So you don't need the perfect bottom, you need the right deal. And the buyers doing well right now, they're not guessing when the bottom is. They're patiently negotiating. They're targeting motivated sellers. They're using inventory to their advantage. And this market is rewarding people who are prepared. Preparation, not fear. Heading into 2026, the data doesn't support any chaos or crashes. It supports stabilization. And that's my prediction throughout the year. Sarasota and Manatee are still lifestyle markets. People still want to live here. Geography limits supply, so we're a coastal community and there's only so much you can build along the coast. And that certainly doesn't mean that prices are going to explode or even rise anytime soon. But it does mean that this market isn't unraveling and it's coming to a nice leveling. So if you're trying to decide whether to buy, sell, or simply wait, the answer isn't online headlines. It's your price range, your neighborhood preferences, and your timeline. So if you want clarity instead of noise, just reach out. You can schedule a free Zoom call, no sales, just plenty of local info, where we can chat, I can answer any questions, and we can customize a plan that's right for you and your family. So there's no obligation to do anything other than just gain more information. So whether your timeline is in 1 month or maybe in 1 year, whatever it might be, you'll learn something new about the current Sarasota market and maybe which neighborhoods make the most sense for you. And if these insights help, subscribe and hit the notification button so you can follow along throughout the year. For living and buying in Sarasota, I'm Rob Rovnak. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.